I'm Insomniac, and this is the Bulova Accutron 2 chronograph. I've had this watch for about 5 months, and I loved it so much that I got 2 of them.
Good for you!
Well, that's not actually why I have 2. It's a long and interesting story, and I actually wound up getting one for free, but I'm not going to bore you with that anecdote in this video. Maybe we'll discuss it at some point over a cigar.
Should've smoked this.
Anyway, this is part of Bulova's Surveyor collection, and it really is everything that a reliable watch and good chronograph should be. I guess that kind of spoils a lot of the review right there, but we're going to go through this watch piece by piece. I'll go through everything that I do and don't like about it, all the details, etc. So let's get started. First, let's talk dimensions. This watch is 41 millimeters in diameter and 48 millimeters lug to lug, which I find to be, for my wrist anyway, the most perfect looking and feeling size. It's 12.5 millimeters thick, which allows it to slide easily under any shirt sleeve for those of you who like that. These dimensions, paired with its cushion-style case, feels as comfortable on the wrist as it looks. On to the case. The case is stainless steel with polished sides, lugs, and bevels, but the bezel area around the mineral crystal is brushed in an outward pattern that visually plays with the mind, almost suggesting a molded, stretched pull from the roundness of the circular crystal into the beautiful curves of the case. Speaking of the curves, the mineral crystal on this watch is curved ever so slightly, which just makes this design flow from the crystal down onto the brushed bezel area and down further onto the bevels just above the perfectly polished sides and lugs. The side profile of this case has a beautiful separation from the underside of the watch and has a great contour downward at the lugs in just the right spot to make it glide over the wrist. The case back is a general screw-down type with a brushed main surface and polished beveled edge, containing general information about the watch and giving it a water resistance of 30 meters. The side of the case containing the crown and pushers is actually slightly carved out and recessed, which allows the crown and pushers to protrude outwardly enough to be very easy to manipulate while keeping them close to the overall outline of the watch's shape, which in my experience works flawlessly for keeping the crown and pushers from digging into your hand throughout the day. Speaking of the crown and pushers, the pushers have one of the best positive feeling clicks that I've ever experienced in a chronograph, which aids in very accurate and purposeful operation, and the crown is not only very easy to use and very grippy, but it has the Bulova logo very subtly etched into it, a really nice touch. The movement of this Accutron 2 chronograph is Bulova's exclusive Accutron 2 high-performance quartz movement made in Japan. It operates on a mind-blowing 262 kHz frequency, which is not only incredibly fast, but unbeatably accurate for both telling time and for use with the chronograph. It's a 6-hand movement with the chrono minutes at 9 o'clock, chrono seconds being the main centralized second hand stemming from the center of the watch, and a 1/10 of a second indicator at 3 o'clock. There's a small seconds hand at 6 o'clock, which actually ticks at half-second intervals, and is one of my only small complaints about this watch. In my opinion, the sub-seconds dial should have been significantly larger, at least the size of the sub-dials for the chronograph, especially being that, as you can see here, they had the extra room on the dial to make it larger. There's a date window between the 4 and 5 o'clock indices, black numeral on a white disc, which I'd actually say doesn't match the dial properly if not for the white accents on the dial where the loom is applied. As for the look of the movement, it's extremely tight and precise to the extent that the look of this movement could be easily compared to watches costing thousands of dollars, and the actual accuracy that you'll experience with this movement matches that look of precision. The dial on this particular model, the 96B238 model, is a stunning red sunburst dial which really plays with light extremely well. It looks fully metallic in some lights, fully matte in other lights, bright ruby red in some lights, while dark maroon in other lights. There is a pronounced concentric circular pattern in each of the 3 subdials and a polished ring of perfect width around those subdials. The indices for the hour markers are applied, slightly raised, polished indices which stand out perfectly against the red dial, with a perfectly applied and sized Bulova logo at 12 o'clock. There are printed white indices between each applied hour marker for easy read of the minutes, and on the outermost track there is a 5th second track for accurate measuring with the chronograph, although to be fair, you need to have wonderful eyesight or a great pair of glasses to see the 5th second indices clearly. The use of white numerals and markers inside the subdials is perfect for an easy read of the hands inside those dials when using the chronograph, and the straight stick style hands used in those subdials is simple but perfectly suited for direct, easy indication of their position when using the chronograph. The minute and hour hands are both sword-style hands with perfectly handsome angles and perfect lengths for accurate reading of the time, with the minute hand reaching all the way out to the minute track while the hour hand falls just shy of those applied polished hour markers. And the big second hand for the chronograph is thin and understated enough that it doesn't get in the way of reading time throughout the day, and it makes thoughtful use of the Bulova logo as a counterbalance. There's a generous amount of lume applied to the insides of the hour and minute hands, as well as above the indices for every hour marker. The quality of the lume is okay. Definitely not the worst I've seen, definitely not the best I've seen. You can read the time in the dark, so in terms of functionality, I guess it does exactly what it needs to do, but it's not the brightest lume you're ever going to see, as you can see somewhere here on screen. The strap is a comfortable padded leather measuring 22 millimeters at the lugs, tapering slightly down to 19 millimeters. There's virtually no break-in period with this strap. It's comfortable almost immediately. And although moderately thin, it in no way feels cheap or flimsy. One of my favorite touches here is the fact that the underside of the strap is red. When you look down at the watch throughout the day, you always see a little peak of red under the tail end of the strap, which looks so good with this dial. It's definitely a subtle but very thoughtful detail. Then there's the buckle, which is a love-hate thing for me. I love the way it looks and works. It's very sturdy, very secure, and the brushed stainless surface with the thick Bulova logo right under the center looks fantastic. My two small issues here are, one, the width of the buckle. I do feel that it could have been a little bit more narrow to create a more streamlined look under the wrist with the strap, and two, the edge of the protruding tuning fork logo that you see here is slightly sharp and does occasionally get caught inside my pocket or on the inside of my jackets. So not a huge deal, but a small detail that I think could use some tweaking. In terms of impressions, it's not the most jaw-dropping watch you're ever going to see, but I have received a lot of compliments on it in the small time that I've owned it. Personally, I do enjoy the aesthetics of this watch every time I look at it. It looks and feels like a watch that could be many price brackets above this one. Speaking of the price, the MSRP on this watch is $550, but I have seen it online for as low as $319. Now I know some of you might be thinking $319 isn't cheap.
Oh, come on now.
For the fit, finish, and quality of this watch and the accuracy of the movement, just over $300 is a steal. For those of you out there looking for a perfect daily wear chronograph, I'd actually personally recommend you picking one of these up. If I were to rate this watch on a scale from 1 to 10 Mike Tysons, I'd give it a 9. And if the sub-seconds dial was bigger and the buckle was a little bit slimmer from side to side, I'd actually feel totally comfortable giving this watch a 10. If you own one of these watches, or you own any Bulova that you want to share your thoughts and feelings on, leave a comment down below. So see you next time.